What up, AP World? If you can hear me, if you can see me, and if you're super stoked to talk about religion, in the chat, let's say one word of how you're feeling right now. Any word. I'm going to fix my lighting a little bit. Depressed. Stressed. Good, tired, okay. All right, All right, so far none of y'all are feeling that great. That's not great. Yeah, so I mean, personally, I'm feeling a little tired. I don't know, kind of stressed out, just generally, I guess. So what we're going to be talking about today, and let me ask you guys another question, is what are you studying this week in AP World? So what topic? What like specific? Don't tell me chapter 7. Tell me like specifically what topic are you studying in AP World right now? So we got Tang and Song. Oh, you're a little bit ahead. Okay. Greece and Rome, Romans. Cool. Starting Rome and China tomorrow. Eastern Christendom, a little bit ahead. How civilizations related to each other. Sweet. So I know how stressful AP World can be, and I just want to tell you, like, keep going. You know, we're heading into October. I know the stress levels have gone up and up and up, and they're continuing to go up because it's like every week there's a chapter and it's never-ending notes. I know that the marathon like feels like it's never going to end. I promise you, it's worth it. The class itself gets better, right? It gets better as it goes because it connects to each other more. It makes more sense. And so, you know, keep pushing forward. What do I do if my class is so easy? I don't know. Enjoy it. So, all right, let's see. Share screen. I mean, if it's so easy that you're not learning anything, then you're going to have to like learn some stuff on your own too. All right, so in the question section below where you can see it says ask a question, I linked this document that I have on there. So it's like, it says graphic organizer for tonight's session. So if you want that document and, you know, just make a copy of it and then you can type in it while we go. That will help you keep track of what we're going to talk through. And I'm going to be talking about all the world religions and belief systems. Or not all of them. There's more than what I'm talking about, but like the major ones that you have to know about. The only one I'm not going to actually specifically talk about is Greco-Roman, but that one I will loop in a little bit. Dylan, you got to stop posting that link. Literally driving me crazy. So let's see. Okay, so I'm going to talk through the different religions. I'm going to focus on like what you have to know about them. You could take an entire college class on any single one of these religions. So there's a whole lot to know. So I'm giving you kind of a second to grab this organizer if you want it. I recommend taking notes on any Fiveable session because it's worth it. When you write things down, you're more likely to actually remember it. So let's see. All right. So again, so if you're just joining us, a bunch of people just joined. The link for this organizer is in the question tab. So when you click ask a question, it's listed there as graphic organizer for tonight. So you can grab this and I'm going to share the slides with you later tonight. So right after this session, I'll send you an email with the slides so that, you know, if you miss something, you can jump in and get whatever you missed. So, all right, let me just go to present mode. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and then lastly, just so that you know just how this platform works, at any point, if you have a question, and try to keep your questions specific to religions. I know that you might be learning about something else that you're doing in class, and you're free to ask the question, of course, and I'll do my best to get to them. But I'm going to really focus on culture and religion here so that we just kind of stay focused. But make sure you put it in the ask a question. The chat, you know, you guys can talk to each other. You can use the chat. If the chat's distracting for you, just minimize it. There's a little minimize button. Otherwise, feel free to write whatever you want in the chat. Feel free to answer each other's questions. But it is sometimes hard for me to follow the chat. So put your questions in there so that I definitely can go back and answer them. All right. World religions. So if you're not already following us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Fiveable, you definitely should be, especially AP World. So, I've been trying to make more YouTube videos for other subjects, and I just haven't quite gotten to it yet. For like human geography, for example, we have been uploading a lot of APUSH and Euro, but for AP World, I have a video for every single key concept, and they're super valuable. So I would definitely recommend subscribing. I'm going to be posting more videos, and those you'll be able to have access to on YouTube. So next week, we're going to talk about trade. That's like silk, sea, and sand roads. And then after that, we're moving into Unit 3. So it seems like we're about in the same area. I'm not going, empire by empire. I'm more talking like big picture stuff. So last week, we talked about the rise and the fall of empire. This week, religion. Next week, trade. And then after that, then we're going to kind of go into more specifics about each place. So Europe after Rome, that's like feudalism and, what goes on in Europe after that. And then after that is Islam. So today is like a general, here's what you need to know about all the religions. I'm going to include Islam in this, although be aware Islam was not created during the classical era. It's during the post-classical era. So, if you're still in time period 2, that's 600 to 600, I think it's just really useful to just have this like overview, right? To know that period 2 is made up of 3 key concepts: religion, states, trade, right? So you can get really caught up in all the details about, every single empire, but stay focused on the big picture topics, and that will help you organize your information and to study. And the other thing too, just like as I go into this, keep in mind, like we're studying religion right now from a historical lens. We're looking at what happened, what these different religions believe, what their significance is, if they have a founder, who that person is, where it originated. We're not looking at like theology. Like we're not going to like unpack different ideas around morality or around like some of the more specific practices. Like we're not looking at this from a religious standpoint. We're looking at it from a historical standpoint. So, this isn't like a which one is best kind of thing. It's just like here's what you need to know. Let's understand these religions as they exist. All right. So just a little, All right. So again, definitely recommend taking notes on the graphic organizer so that you can keep track of everything you need to know. So it's in the Ask Question tab, and you can make a copy of it and take notes. All right, so let's start with just a quick graph. So this is just showing you, it's kind of a timeline, when each religion was created. This is actually showing you fates of religion. So whether or not the religion believes in like a final judgment or a rebirth. Like a judgment would be like a heaven or hell, or a rebirth, or just like death, there's nothing, or immortal, right? And so it's kind of interesting just to see the color breakdown here. But, ultimately the reason why I'm showing you this is for a timeline. So you can kind of see, why religion is such a big part of the classical era is because most of the major world religions that we have today, that's when they start, like this is a big time, like that's huge, right? And then obviously you have a few that start after that. Islam would be the most historically significant, widespread religion that starts after that. And then you have like several other ones, right? And so I think that's kind of an interesting timeline just to see like when they kind of start and what order they go in. And then I'm going to be going through each one chronologically. So All right, so the first religion or sort of like belief system that we're going to highlight is called animism. And essentially what animism is it's this like belief that all living things have a soul. So this is like one of the earliest belief systems that exist. This is like Paleolithic era, this is early humans. And now we see this in, or more recently, we connect this with indigenous groups, with really like, let's see. So we really see this with like Native American tribes, with other indigenous groups in Australia and Africa. It's really more connected to like nomadic or foraging society, because it's not, it's not really like an organized religion. It doesn't have like a book and rules and all this other pieces to it. Like there's no like, church to go to. There's nothing like that. It's more of just like a way of thinking. And because it's so related to it, it's because like early humans or more indigenous humans, foraging humans, have to relate to their society a lot, right? They're very connected with nature. And so the like goal for animists is to just find that like peace, that balance with nature. And it really like predates the organized religion. So I don't even know if you would consider animism a religion, and even like societies that we would maybe call animist, they don't necessarily call themselves animist. It's not like, any of the other religions I'll go through. They might not even have a word for it. It's more of like an anthropological like word, like way that we describe these societies, because it's like we need them to have some sort of belief system. So our sects of religions on here, like Protestantism, I'm not going through the specific like different sect of Christianity. I will show you a chart of them, but no, we're going to focus more on just like the bigger, like overarching religion. All right, so animism. So this is like when you think of like the movie Pocahontas and all the animals and the trees are like talking and singing. That's what you think of when you think of animism. All right, Hinduism. I guess I should put Judaism before Hinduism, but it's okay. So maybe they're not totally there. So, all right. So Hinduism originates in India. There's several major texts related to it. Two that you should know are the Vedas and the Upanishads. These would be like the most important texts. And today there's over 1 billion adherents of this religion, most of whom live in India. And so really like the goal of a Hindu is to escape the cycle of rebirth. And that cycle is called samsara. That's just like what the cycle is. And so the idea is that you're consistently reborn into another life based on the deeds and what you did in your past life. So if you are able to break out of that cycle, it's because you followed the correct like rules, the correct practices, and you were then like, you've done the things you were supposed to do. You're considered a good person and therefore have broken out of this cycle. If you do the things you're not supposed to do, then you could theoretically be reborn as something worse. And so this is where like the caste system comes into play. And so it's a very rigid social hierarchy where you can be reborn as a higher, caste until eventually you're kind of out of it. Or you could be reborn as a lower caste if you're being like punished, essentially. Should you know the word samsara and moksha, it's any terms like this, it's worth it to know. It could be evidence points if you're writing. And you're not going to get a question on the test that is specifically asking you to describe Hinduism. It's just useful information. So some of the practices, like common practices of Hindus, include things like yoga, meditation. Hinduism itself is polytheistic, but there is this understanding that there's like one like god, that one deity that takes form in several other gods. And so all those other gods can be more local gods. And so generally people have like one god or goddess or a few that they pray to, but it's not that there is like, it's kind of complicated. It's kind of like there's one God that is seen through many. So, and then you're supposed to live through the dharma is your duty, right? So this is your caste. So what is it that you were supposed to do in this life? You need to do that in order to be reborn and achieve moksha. So, let's see. Most people just worship one or two gods. Exactly. So most people might worship, one or god or goddess that's more like local, right? That's like, they take different forms. So the historical significance of Hinduism has a lot to do with the caste system. And so if you remember anything about Hinduism, remember the caste system, because that's going to come up a whole lot. Pretty much every time you study India, you're going to talk about the caste system. It really limits social mobility because you're born into this caste and you don't have a way out of it other than dying and being reborn into a different caste. So if you're born as the lowest caste, right, the untouchables, then you have to deal with oppression pretty much indefinitely because of what class you were born in, what caste you were born in. And so, that's obviously a lot. That really makes society very difficult because you can't necessarily, it's not like, work hard and you can get out of it. It's not, nothing you can do. So that explains a lot of what happens in India is this like, did I just cut out? Can you hear me? That's weird. Okay. All right. I don't know what just happened. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know why it's still like cut out. It's just a picture of me. Okay. Yeah, hang on. Okay, let me just refresh. All right, well, now I'm back and super bright. What the hell? Here we go. All right, better. Okay, let me go back. I don't know what just happened. That was weird. Okay, share my screen. Yep, and the other thing too is I am going to share the slides with you. So if you want to just listen and fill out the chart on some level, or just listen and then fill it out later, you do you. So, all right. So a couple other like historical significances of Hinduism has to do with the relationship between Hinduism. And so what happens in India is that India is invaded by several different of the like Muslim empires, like throughout of the Islamic empires. And so if you can't hear me, just refresh. So, okay, so the conflict between Muslims and Hindus, like after you have all those invasions for several centuries, then you start to have this much larger Muslim population in India. And so now the actual like conflict between Muslims and Hindus in the last century has been insane. And so you literally have, like, for example, when India becomes independent, then you have all of this violence between Muslims and Hindus and this controversy over one state versus two states. And so this is the historical significance of Hinduism. All right, moving on. All right, Zoroastrianism. Yeah, I definitely should have put Judaism first. My bad. Okay, so Zoroastrianism is really like the first, it's not the first religion, but it's the first like monotheistic religion. And here we go. Okay, so it originates in the Middle East. It's Ahura Mazda that is the founder of it. And there are about 150,000 adherents today. And so the kind of like the goal of a Zoroastrian is to get into heaven because of a final judgment that will judge your I think Ahura Mazda is both. Is the like founder. No? And yeah, I think he goes by both names. That's what I think. So the idea is, I don't know. So the idea is that your thoughts, your words, and deeds are throughout your lifetime are judged, and then you can get into heaven if they're judged to be good. Let's see, Zoro. I'm gonna look this up now. I think it's like, dang, I really thought, okay, so then I guess the Persian prophet is Zoroaster. You guys are totally right. So what am I doing here? What am I thinking? Anyways, well, you live and you learn. So here we go. All right. So anyways, the historical significance of Zoroastrianism is kind of small. It doesn't come up all that much. And so essentially Zoroaster, there you go. Essentially the significance is that it's like the first monotheistic religion. So it influences others. The other significance is that Zoroastrians tend to always be a minority group, you know, in whatever country they're living in. And so because of that, they've been persecuted several times. And that is historically significant. Okay, Jainism. All right, maybe I'm not in chronological order, but whatever. So, all right, so Jainism. So Jainism also is in India. The teachings of Mahavira is like the major text of Jainism, and there's about 4 million adherents today. Something super interesting that I just read about today, because I never really seen this symbol before of Jainism, this hand. And I know that in Judaism, there's something called a Hamsa that is actually like an upside down hand that looks almost the same. And this is called the Ahimsa. And it's just like super interesting because they're very similar. They're actually really similar words. They're similar symbols and they mean similar things. They're both about pacifism. They're both about protection. And so, yeah, Ahimsa is nonviolence. The Hamsa is a different thing, but it just shows an example of how two totally separate groups developed similar ideas, even though they didn't know that each other were doing that. They're just very similar ideas. So the goal of Jainism is to gain liberation from this cycle of rebirth. So it's very similar to like Hinduism, right? Which makes sense. It's in India. It's influenced by Hinduism. But their practices are a little bit different because they're very, very focused on non-violence, that ahimsa, right? And so exactly. So that idea of ahimsa, of non-violence, influences Gandhi, influences Martin Luther King, influences Nelson Mandela, right? So it's very significant in its like in what it actually like stands for. But also Jainists don't believe in harming any being. So even small insects, nothing. So that's an important practice because that kind of makes them different. I've seen things where they sort of like they like sweep in front of them so that they don't step on anything by accident. I'm not sure. I think look into this more. What about bacteria? I don't know. I mean, I think you can get really super, I don't know, micro in our like analysis here, but they don't harm things. So historical significance, obviously ahimsa, and then just like persecution from Muslim rulers in India because Jainists are a minority group, right? There's not all that many of them, right? India is a massive place, and having only about 4 million isn't that many. So there is oftentimes persecution. You guys are funny. Yeah, it's a very strict religion for sure. Okay. All right, now Judaism. Okay, so Judaism originates in the Middle East. There's several major texts for Judaism. The Torah is like the most maybe common one that you're taught. The Torah is essentially the Old Testament in Hebrew. So they're the same books. And then the Tanakh and the Talmud are other writings of like rabbis that sort of analyze like what to do and how to do it. So today there's about 14 million Jews living around the world, and we'll talk about the importance of like where they live in a second. And so the goal of like Jews is essentially to like obey the commandments given by God, right? And Jews believe in one God, which is the same God that Muslims and Christians believe in. And so for Jews, it's like live by the commandments of God and live ethically. And there's a real big focus on like this life rather than the next. So there really isn't, there is not, the Talmud and the Tanakh are not in the Torah. They're separate. So for Jews, there isn't really, like you saw in that first chart I had put up, there isn't an afterlife that's like specified. There is the Jews are sort of like waiting for the Messiah to appear, to return, and that would be like an afterlife that would be more of like peaceful. But there isn't like a heaven or a hell. You don't get judged based on what you do. And so in terms of Judaism, it's much more focused on this life rather than the next, whereas a lot of these other religions do focus on like an afterlife. So Judaism and Christianity are extremely similar, but this is a major difference, is like afterlife and salvation. It doesn't really exist for Jews. They don't think of heaven. They don't think of those things. And so, yeah, right. So like they're based on the same, like, the Old Testament is the same for the two, right? They're both Abrahamic religions. They both believe in the same God. The 10 Commandments are the same for both religions. There's a lot of basics that are the same, but there are also some big differences as well. Some of the practices of Jews would be like certain like life cycle events, as there are for any religion. Observing the Sabbath, which for Jews would be on a Saturday, and keeping the body like pure and clean is a big piece of it. So like eating kosher foods, not getting tattoos, being buried like right away, right after you die. Like a lot of the practices of Jews are because of like the body is supposed to be very like pure and clean. So they all kind of like touch on that. So historical significance of Judaism. Unfortunately, the historical significance is really focused around persecution. So because there's been persecution of Jews pretty much, for a long time, like since at least within like Rome, if not before then, you have a diaspora. This is a super important word to know, diaspora, because this happens to a lot of different people, Jews being one group, where you are spread out from your homeland, right? So, Judaism is originated in the Middle East, but most Jews today don't live in the Middle East, right? So people live all around the world. They've been kind of spread out because of persecution, because something happens and then they have to escape. The Holocaust itself wiped out most of European Jewry. So like, most of the Jews that lived in Europe were wiped out because of that, or left Europe because of that. And then the state of Israel, since 1948, has sparked a lot of conflict in the Middle East that will come up quite a bit in Unit 6. So having a basic understanding of Judaism will just kind of help you understand like Jewish communities and why they do what they do. All right, let's move forward. Okay, Christianity. So Christianity originates in the Middle East. Oh, this says major text, and it totally shouldn't. Founder, right? So the major person would be Jesus, and then the number of adherents would be, there's actually 2.4 billion adherents, 2.4 billion Christians in the world today. And so the goal of Christians is, similar to like some of these other religions where there's like salvation because of your faith, because of good deeds. So, if you practice the right things, you will then be judged to have been good and therefore will go to heaven. So it's a religion of salvation. There is a focus on the afterlife, right? The afterlife will be better. That's kind of the focus of it. And so one of the things with Christianity and with that religion of salvation is we talked about this last week. It's like one of the reasons why some of these classical civilizations fall, because people start to focus more on an afterlife rather than this life, right? Rome is collapsing around me. Instead of doing something to fix it, I'm just going to focus on my faith and my good deeds, and that will get me into an afterlife, and therefore I'll be fine, right? But if everyone does that, Rome's going to fall. So, excuse me, that's kind of what happens. So, yeah, I mean, it's all about faith, right? That's why you study religion and history, because it gives you so much perspective into like why people do what they do, because they really truly believe in these different ideas, these different ideologies, So, Christians, obviously, they have life cycle events like everyone else. They also observe a Sabbath, worship, prayer, study of the Bible. Like all these things would be part of being Christian. And historical significance, there's a lot. And I think, I'm not going to get into that. So basically, you have Christians are persecuted in Rome until the Edict of Milan, which is worth knowing, and it's worth actually knowing the date of that, which is 313. So the Edict of Milan legalizes Christianity in Rome, and then Theodosius a few years later. So it's Constantine that does the Edict of Milan. Theodosius is what he then makes Christianity the official religion of Rome. So that decision right there may have been the end of Rome, right? If you're making it the official religion and this is getting people to focus more on the afterlife than this life, challenging. So beyond that, other historical significances, after Rome falls for several decades, you've got, starting with the Reformation, starting with the Schism, you then have, and then the Reformation, you have a split into several sects, several denominations. Protestantism, Catholicism remains as like the Roman Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, and all these different splits are themselves historically significant because people decide that there's a different way to look at things, right? They're all based on just like differences in how you understand the religion itself, right? Like whether or not you want to take it literally, whether or not you want to analyze it in different ways. Like they all they believe in the same like general things, but differ in like how to practice them. And so the other importance here is that Christianity is spread through missionaries. Missionaries tend to be really important in history because they are not only taking, spreading ideas and religion, but they spread other ideas as well with them. And they spread disease. So that's super important. Christianity itself motivates the explorers when it comes to like the Columbian Exchange, right? There's this motivation to spread Christianity. So a lot of these so a lot of these religions are proselytizing. So what that word means is that they specifically try to spread their religion. So whereas like, so Judaism and Hinduism and probably Jainism and a few of the other ones are more like ethnic religions. They're not trying to gain more followers. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, these are your three like good examples of religions that proselytize. They are actively trying to gain followers, right? Like you don't get like a Jewish person knocking on your door trying to like sell their religion to you, right? But you could get any of the other ones, right? They are proselytizing. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, these are proselytizing religions. So there's just a difference in whether or not it's meant to be spread or not. And so the fact that it is a proselytizing religion affects history because there's an effort to spread Christianity. And then obviously there's the Crusades, which are based on violence and trying to like take back the like Holy Land. And then there's massive effects of Christianity on Western culture and politics. Even if we separate church and state, we're still very influenced by Christianity, even in our politics. So, I mean, yeah. All right. So, yeah, sorry, Founding Fathers. So here's a quick little branches of Christianity. So notice that Judaism is at the very bottom because Judaism is like, you can almost think of Christianity as like Judaism like 2.0, right? It's not like better. It's not anything. It's just different. But it's building on the same foundation, right? And so you have this whole like tree, right? And it's kind of going up until you've got the Great Schism in 1054. That's when you have the split of Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox. And then you have Luther in 1517, and that's when you get Protestantism. And then you can just see like there's a ton of Christian denominations, right? Like you have all these different people who believe in a very similar faith, right? It's the same religion. But they approach it differently. There's differences in how they practice and what exactly they believe in, what they believe. Like if you ask any of these people, what does it mean to be a good Christian? They're all going to answer it differently. Just like if you ask people within the different like Muslim, like Sunni and Shia, like they're going to answer that differently. So anyways, you don't need to know every single one of these, and you definitely don't need to know how they're all related to each other. But it's important that you know that a Catholic is a Christian, a Protestant is a Christian, like they're all Christian. So there's a lot of times confusion over that word. And I've had this conversation in my own classroom a lot of times where like students just think that, like there's like Christian and then there's Catholic, and that's not true, right? So it's like one thing, and then there's a lot of different versions of it. Okay. All right, let's talk about Buddhism. A Catholic is a Christian. Exactly, right? So that's what I was trying to say. So there's different types of so Christianity has different branches, right? So there are different denominations, there's different sects of Christians, but they're all like underneath the umbrella of Christianity. So, okay. All right. So Buddhism. So Buddhism originates in India. Oh, you know what I didn't fill out is the major text, but that's okay. The founder is Siddhartha, who, maybe you can write that one down instead of the major text. There are 520 million Buddhists today. Yeah, you could consider the Four Noble Truths as the major text. And there are other ones. There are other texts that are useful. The Eightfold Path is not necessarily a text. It's more of the like layout of the religion. So anyway, so with Buddhism, it's similar to Hinduism, right? The goal is to overcome suffering through like breaking the cycle of rebirth, right? So you're achieving nirvana, which is this like stage of enlightenment where you are no longer suffering. And you can do that by following the Eightfold Path. Do you have to know exactly what is in the Eightfold Path? No, but being able to just like attack, like when you think of Buddhism, you should think of Eightfold Path. You should think of Four Noble Truths. And it's just like any of these words, right? So it's like the Four Noble Truths are in the Eightfold Path. No, you're right. Yeah, the Eightfold Path is in the Four Noble Truths. Yes. It's hard to keep them straight. So the Eightfold Path, here are the 8 things. Actually, you know what? I think I'm missing the 8th one. Dang. I'm a mess tonight. Sorry, y'all. So basically with the Eightfold Path is a belief in nirvana, a belief that there is enlightenment, that you can break the suffering. There's, beliefs in love and kindness, in speaking the truth, in nonviolence, right? You see this like nonviolence theme that is throughout like a lot of or all of the religions coming out of India. Helping others, putting forth your best effort into doing these things. Mindfulness, meditation, these are just some of the different things. And then historical significance. So like very similar, but there's no caste system. And so it's appealing in India because if you're Hindu and you're born into a certain caste, you have to be there until you are reborn into another caste. If you're Buddhist, there is no caste, right? You're not stuck in this life. And so that's very appealing. If you're, looking for social mobility, this is a good move. So Buddhism spreads in India pretty quickly, especially after Ashoka converts to Buddhism and then promotes it, right? So he's got his like rock and pillar edicts. He's teaching his followers how to live like Buddhists. And one of the big things he does is to promote pacifism, which is kind of interesting because it potentially is one of the reasons why the Mauryan dynasty falls, because you have an empire of pacifists. And in order to remain an empire, you have to be able to fight for your empire. And so pacifism doesn't really lend itself to that. And so it's potentially a reason why the Mauryan dynasty falls is because they're pacifists, which is, I don't know, kind of sad. So another important significance of Buddhism is the spread of Buddhism to China, to Japan, and to Southeast Asia through trade and through missionaries. So we've got, the actual spread of Buddhism into China does come up a lot on the exam of how the Chinese reacted to Buddhism. And at first, not well, right? So at first, they don't want it as part of society. It kind of becomes more part of it. And you even get syncretic religions where you get more of like a combination of like Buddhist and Confucian thought. So, okay. So heading back here, let me just, so that when I send you this, it's correct. All right, sorry, that wasn't there before. All right, let's talk about Confucianism. I'm just going to kind of go through the Chinese philosophies here. So, yeah, so something to know with Confucianism, with legalism, with Taoism, these are not religions, these are philosophies, okay? So they're like ways of thinking in terms of like how you should live, but they're not really like religions. So Confucianism is China. It's developed by Confucius, and there are about 5 or 6 million people who identify as Confucian today, which doesn't seem like a lot. Right. So basically the like focus of and I think it's because I think Confucianism is less of like the religion that people identify as and more at this point just sort of a way of life. Like it's very embedded into Chinese society, and so you can be a Buddhist in China and follow a lot of the tenets of Confucianism, but just because they're really intertwined with like Chinese culture at this point. And so I think that would probably be a reason. And yeah, Dylan, that would also be probably a reason, is that communist China will not be down with it. So the goal of Confucian like thought is to basically like fulfill your role in society with good conduct, wisdom, and social relationships. And so it's very much about so these practices here are really the tenets of it. So you have Ren, which is altruism, which is like doing good for others, and then you have Li, which is following customs. And so you have, between those two things, it kind of explains. So Courtney, the major tenets here are sort of the practices. So you've got Ren and Li, and that's two of them, and then you have other ideas, other like philosophies that go with it. You have loyalty. Loyalty to all these different people in your life. Filial piety. You've got 5 relationships. And the 5 relationships are extremely patriarchal. They're really only talking about the like men in your life, right? Yeah. So filial piety is basically, respecting your father, right? I'm like getting so sidetracked by this chat. So the other major thing is education. Education is a major part of Confucianism. I think the thing why one of the things to know about Confucianism is that it's very much focused on like what is it called? Like self creation, like your own achievements, like individual, right. So like individual achievement, right? So, and when you look at like the society of like China, that is very much how it's described. It's a lot more of like people are kind of focused on their own like up and coming, right? And so not necessarily self-actualization, but more of just like where you get in life. It's about like your own relationships to others, your own education, your loyalty, right? It's like being a good person and checking off the right boxes, right? And it's extremely influential in all of Chinese history. So you've got like civil service exam. So there's a influence on education because of Confucianism, because education is seen as so important. It's intertwined in politics because you have the 5 relationships as so important. Patriarchy becomes a defining aspect of China. And then, of course, the ideas of Confucianism will spread to Japan, will spread to Korea. And these ideas, when they spread, tends to be called Sinification. That's the spread of like Chinese thought. And so one of the major writings can be the Analects. That's something, and what's the other one? Book of Songs. Yeah, the Book of Songs. So anyways, this is Confucianism. All right, Taoism. So the biggest thing with Taoism, the yin yang is like super good to remember because it is very much the like symbol of Taoism, right? This like balance. And with Taoism specifically, you've got development of like inner powers. It's all about harmony and balance, especially a balance with nature. It's a lot more of like going with the flow rather than it's like a lot less strict than Confucianism. And this one it's like similar, right? But there isn't an emphasis on social order. So government wouldn't like this because people are just kind of like going with the flow. But how do you like how do you actually like keep your government together if everyone's Taoist and everyone's just like super chill, right? So it's not very aligned to having a strong government. And so that brings me to, I'm not going to spend too much time on Taoism. So legalism is just sort of like the opposite, right? And I'll send these slides out in like 20 minutes. So legalism is very similar, right? This is another philosophy, but it's like Confucianism is all about the goodness of people, and Taoism is all about the like balance of humans and nature. Legalism is all about strict laws. Like, you can't just lightly nudge someone to do the right thing. You have to force them to do the right thing through laws, right? And that's super intense. But that's basically what empowers and helps unify the Qin dynasty, and then it kind of falls apart after that. And so that the historical significance is the most important. But essentially, it's like humans are inherently selfish. They're not willing to help each other out unless you force them to, right? Like, they're inherently going to do whatever they want, and they're not going to help you out. So kind of intense. All right. 2 more. So Islam. So if you're studying classical era right now, you haven't gotten to Islam yet, and I'm going to spend, in 2 weeks, I'm going to spend an entire session just talking about Islam and the history of the empires. But Islam is founded in Mecca by Muhammad, and there's about 1.8 billion Muslims in the world. And they are specifically, it's like the fastest growing religion. And so the life goal, it's very similar to some of the other, like Christianity, for example. There's this final judgment by God, and if you have been judged to be a good person and to follow the laws of Islam, then you will be rewarded with paradise, right? Which is like heaven. And so for the practices of Islam, there are 5 pillars. You don't need to remember all 5 or like the specifics, but it's worth knowing these anyways. But basically, it's that you have faith in one God. You pray 5 times a day. Charity, you're giving. This is like alms, right? You're donating to charity, or you're helping others out. Fasting, specifically during Ramadan or any of the other, I think there's 1 or 2 other festivals, but fasting. And then finally making a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your life. So those are the 5 pillars. And then there are other like rules and whatnot of Islam. And the historical significance is that you have, once you have Islam, you have the, connection of all these like Arab empires. And so you have the expansion of Islamic empires. There's a massive influence on medicine and math and astronomy, tons of things that like Europeans take credit for later, was Muslim astronomers and mathematicians and doctors that created these things. Trade, in the post-classical era, the reason why you have so much trade is because like Muhammad himself was a merchant. And so trade is something that is very important in Islam. And so a lot of merchants in the post-classical era were Muslim. And through that, you have this like diffusion. So Islam spreads all throughout North Africa, all throughout this like Southeast Asia and India and the entire Indian Ocean basin, and pretty much as far as it will go. So then beyond that, you also have conflict between, just like with Christianity, how you have different denominations, it's the same thing with Islam. You have Sunnis and Shiites, and there is conflict between these 2 groups that have kind of exploded in different areas. And then in the last century, anti-Muslim rhetoric has increased significantly, especially in the 21st century. And so this will continue to be something that we talk about, and how we treat people. All right, last one, I believe. Yep. All right, Sikhism. So Sikhism is like the youngest major world religion. So it's originated in the Punjab region of India. This is the major text. So they had this like line of gurus, and then the last guru like basically wrote it all down and said there's no more human gurus. The guru is now the book. And so there are about 25 million adherents of Sikhism, and most of these people live in the Punjab area of India. The goal of a Sikh is to break the cycle of reincarnation. So it's worth noting, Sikhism is an example of a syncretic religion. It's blended between Hinduism and Islam. It's the 2 of them kind of combined. And in India, that makes sense because there's many Muslims and many Hindus. And so people sort of combined the two and take some parts from one and some parts from the other. So it's first developed in the Mughal Empire, which we'll talk about way later. But it's important because it's because of its syncretic nature. And so there are a few other examples of syncretic religions like Voodoo or Vodun in West Africa. It's like West African culture plus Christianity, and it develops in the Caribbean. And so syncretism is just when two ideas are blended together. And this would be the syncretic religion with the most adherents. Yeah, I would say that. And yeah, the PowerPoint will be, I'll send an email with the slides at the end. And yeah, and just so that you guys know, no one here is at my school. I'm not teaching at a school. I teach here. So, all right, let me click out of this. Let's check the questions. And I think that, I think you guys answered a lot of them, which is good. All right, so if you guys could just take a second, look at the questions and upvote any that you want me to explain further. So a lot of them have been answered already. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like they're all answered. So if you put a question in there at all, the answers are, because there's some great students in here, they've all been answered. So you can just sort of like scroll through and see that. Okay. All right, y'all. So as mentioned earlier and in the emails, this is the last. So Fiveable is every Monday night, we're doing live events for AP World History to help you guys pass not only your class and to keep your grades up and to help you not be so stressed out, but to also march towards May, right? So I want to help you earn college credit because college loans are the worst and the cost of college is not going away, and you can fight it by passing these exams. So there's a button me that says replays and future live sessions. And what we're doing is that we did a fall early bird special. So to continue getting access, tonight is the last free session that we're going to do for AP World. So to continue to have access to these sessions, you'll need to become a member. To become a member, if you do it tonight before midnight, it's $15 for the whole year, which when you really think about that, when you break down that number, it's super cheap. So it's like, I'm going to help you pass this exam. You're going to save $4,000 in college credits, and that will help save you money. And so, talk to your parents, talk to your siblings, see what you can find, you can come up with, because this is like the single best thing that you could probably do to improve your grade. The price of Fiveable is going up all year because the further we get in the year, the more students are signing up. So, right now there's about 3,300 students signed up for Fiveable. And because of that, we need to make sure that we have enough room in these live sessions. So throughout the year, we're going to have to hire more and more teachers to make sure that everyone's questions get answered. So when you join, you have access to not only weekly live events, but also the May cram sessions. And those are massive. So every night, the week of the exam, we'll be live helping you with all the last minute tips you have to know with people who read for the exam. So like we know what the readers are going to be looking for when they grade your essays. So if you're thinking ahead right now, think about your future self in, May. You're going to be stressed out. And in May, Fiveable is going to cost a lot more money for one subject. So by getting in now, you're saving a ton. What classes are set to be added? So this year right now we have 10 subjects. I'm looking to add calculus and chemistry as soon as possible. And then, beyond that, like we're trying to get all the AP classes as soon as possible. So, yeah, Noah, I'll be emailing you the slides in just a few minutes. So you'll get an email from me with the link to the slides. And so anyways, that's the pitch. I know that procrastination is like the single like toughest thing in your way. And I want to help you fight that and help, the longer you're working with Fiveable, the more live sessions you come to, the better your chances are of passing this exam and saving all that money. And so, yeah, so we have bio, we have all 3 histories, both English classes, stats, bio. God, my mind is just like done. Stats, bio, human geography, psychology, and US government. And then we're going to keep adding them. We're going to keep going until we have all of them. And so you can become a member. It's like one time $15, and then you get all the live sessions. If you're taking more than one AP class, you can buy one subject or you can get them all. And it's $30 for all of them right now. And that's just going to keep going up. So by the end of the year, to get all the subjects, the unlimited package, which is $30 tonight, that one is $100 at the end of the year. So, up to you, y'all. So if you felt like today was super useful for you, if you felt like you understand these religions better, are they all $15? So there aren't going to be any more free live events that are content-based. Each subject, so if you just are taking AP World, if you're just taking one AP, it's $15. If you're taking any more, like 2 or more, then you'll just do the unlimited one and it's $30. So I don't know, I couldn't make this any more cheaper. Like it's just, I can't make it free because I have to pay the teachers. So, yeah, it's literally the price of a review book right now, and it's going to go up. All right. Anyways, any questions about Fiveable? And then also one other question for you. I asked this in human geography. I want to know your opinion as well. Something that I'm thinking about doing, will the live videos always be on Monday? Yeah, so I'll always be Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern for history, unless for some reason I need to change it that week. But yeah, it should be pretty regular on Mondays. Something I'm thinking about doing, and by the way, what I'm about to say would not be a paid thing. This would just be like a free discussion, but it's not like specifically meant to help you with AP classes. Would you be interested in a free session sometime, every so often about current events? Yeah, you knew. A free session about current events. Something that I'm thinking a lot about is just how crazy our world is right now and how stressed out every single adult is. And I can't even imagine how stressed out you are. And so I don't know if your teachers are talking about what's going on in class. At the school I taught at, we did whatever we wanted. A lot of teachers can't talk about these things. And what I could do is talk about some of the things that are going on in the world. Obviously what's going on with Kavanaugh is super important. And this would be, something that I think that we can talk about. I can explain to you what happened, what it means, what confirmation processes look like. And like kind of like a podcast style, right? Like it could be, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily do it every single day. But, I think it's worth attacking some of these issues that are worth talking about, that are important. And it's literally history that's happening. And you deserve to understand what's going on, and you deserve to have every single question that you have answered. And I don't know if you have places to get all those things answered right now. And so if that's something that I can provide for you, then I definitely would like to look into that. And so, let's see, let me just take a quick poll. All right, I added a current event poll, so you can just answer that really quick. Yes or no. And I can no, I don't have to only talk about the US. I would talk about the world, right? There's things going on around the entire world. It's not just like, here's this one thing. It's just like there's just a lot going on. And in the next like month and a half, it's not going to slow down. So if I can take a few minutes and explain what's going on in a way that I think you'll understand and answer your questions, I think it's worth it. So just curious. And beyond that, I'm about to head out. Looks like you guys definitely want that. It's so interesting. All right, so I will let you know. I'll send an email in a few minutes with the slides. And I'll send an email later on when I actually do plan out a current events session. So when you get the email from me tonight, stay on the email list. Don't unsubscribe, just so that you know when I do the events later. All right. And thanks for the compliment, but no. I mean, come on. $15 is like, what, 3 coffees? Because coffee is so expensive. So, I don't know, y'all. Yeah, go scrounge up some pennies. I guess you still need a card. Anywho, that's it for tonight. I'm going to send the slides out right now. So until then, click the replays and future live sessions button and check it out at fiveable.me/live.